All right. Awesome. Welcome, 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 everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so thrilled to have you here and join us. Today's session is with Diana Hoyt. We are so excited. It's going to be on retention and stewardship in your annual fund. So we're going to give attendees just a couple of minutes to come on into the Zoom, settle in. We'll start a quick introduction at that point. I really hope you have a pen and paper ready. I think Diana is going to have some awesome tips for you all, maybe even a cup of coffee to get yourself pumped up. So as we settle in here, I would love for you guys to use this chat feature. I really want to hear about some of the wins that your organization has had this week, whether you won a grant or made an exciting new process improvement. Pop that in the chat, maybe where you're Zooming from as well. Let's see. Should be coming through any second here. Right. Illinois. That's awesome. Most of the QGIve staff is in Florida. I'm in Rhode Island, and Diana is from Phoenix. So I'm very jealous of anyone that's in a sunny climate. Chicago area. Ooh, California. 2 Californias. That's awesome. Oh my goodness, this chat is going crazy. I love to see it. We have a lot of people joining today. There's going to be some great info. Oh, we have a lot of people from Florida. Chicago again, Delaware. Awesome. All right, guys, we're just going to give maybe one more minute, and then we will hop into the webinar today. Ooh, Tennessee. Hello, Long Island. Ooh, Canada. That's exciting. From Boston. You're almost my neighbor, Caitlin. I'm in Rhode Island. All right, guys, what do you think? Time to get going? Sounds good. Ready. We're getting some thumbs up. Diana's ready. All right, let's do it. So hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Mercurio. I'm the content education specialist on the QGIve team. On this webinar today, I'm also joined by Brendan Smith from the QGIve business development team, and of course, our wonderful presenter, Diana Hoyt. So before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items for you. We are recording this webinar, and all registrants will be receiving an email tomorrow with a link to this session and some additional resources. Also, like you're doing, feel free to use this chat to chat with me and Brendan and Diana and also your other peers in this webinar today. And please use the Q&A feature. So we will get to all your questions and Diana will answer them at the end of the presentation today. So a little bit about QGIve. For those in this webinar who are not familiar, we are a fundraising software that provides fundraising services to over 6,000 nonprofits throughout the United States and Canada. We are really excited to offer fundraising features such as donation and event forms, peer-to-peer fundraising tools, text fundraising, and auction management options. So we are excited to assist you in your fundraising efforts. And if these options sound like something that could benefit your fundraising, reach out to QGIve. We're really happy to chat and work with you. We are also really excited to refer our network of nonprofit friends to our amazing partner network, one of them being Diana Hoyt on the call today and our formula for fundraising. So she specializes in fundraising and CRM consulting, and we are so excited to have Diana join us today. She is an encyclopedia of knowledge and a veteran fundraiser. So get your pens ready, get your notepads ready. She has so many wonderful insights to share with all of us today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Diana.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wendy. I'm excited about this, and I welcome everyone. This is one of my favorite topics. When I started off in fundraising, I honestly, 35, 40 years ago, the very first thing I worked on as a volunteer fundraiser was the annual fund. Now, I really didn't know at that point. I was just a little volunteer helping out. Somebody said, hey, would you come to this meeting? And I said, yes. And all of a sudden I'm involved in fundraising and the annual fund. And it was an exciting adventure that eventually led me to become a professional fundraiser. And then the rest, as they say, is history from that point on. But the annual fund is just a critical aspect of a fundraising program. And a lot of nonprofit professionals will look at your fundraising program, your overall program, and there are 4 major facets. And I'm going to talk about them from the bottom up. There's the planned giving, which actually everybody should have a planned giving component within their fundraising plan. Most don't, but you should consider it. Not everyone will do a capital campaign. A few of you may never do one. Some of you will do one every few years. It's one of those things that just really depends upon your organization. Almost every nonprofit is going to do special purpose gifts. That's when you have a restricted gift program that you need to raise money for. So I know when I worked for an organization, we had to buy an ambulance because that's the kind of work we did. And we did a special fundraising program just to raise that money. And that was quite separate from the annual fund and everything else we were doing. So it's when you're raising a chunk of money for a restricted program, or like in our case, it was an ambulance. And everything else is going to fall basically within the annual fund. So by definition, an annual fund is the cornerstone and key to success for all aspects of your fundraising program, your resource development program. And this was a definition from the book, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising by Henry Rosso. I'm going to quote him a couple of different times. He wrote probably one of the definitive texts on fundraising, and that was Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. And I would suggest if you don't own that book, it is worth owning. And it has been updated. Henry, often called Hank, is passed away a few years ago, but his book is still one of the absolute go-to books in the industry. The annual fund, by the way, sometimes is called the annual giving and sometimes called the annual campaign. And what makes it important is that it provides the immediate available money that you need to run your organization. So it is that day-to-day operation kind of money that you're going to raise. Now, everybody has a different approach to this. The annual fund is not your fundraising plan. Okay, it is part of your fundraising plan because outside of the annual fund, you're going to also have grants, in-kind, restricted type giving. Okay, but it is still that core operational money that is within that plan. And that can sometimes be confusing. Some research was done a few years ago by the Nonprofit Research Collaborative. And what they found in doing their research, and they spoke to hundreds of nonprofits to get to this information. And they found that organizations that had an annual giving, annual fund process, that 77% of them reached goal just by having that process. That only 55% met goal that didn't have an annual fund. Okay, so it really does make a huge difference. They also found that large organizations were more likely to make goals than small. Now, they defined a small organization as being less than a $250,000 goal of raising money. And I think also one of the big things that differentiates is whether you have staff that can actually run your annual fund, because it is a more intensive situation than just doing a Giving Tuesday, for example, because it really encompasses a lot of things in that regard. And so, but even if you're a small nonprofit, you can still do an annual fund. It just means that there's going to have to be a little bit more heavy lifting by some of your volunteers. Okay. And I know that when I was involved as a volunteer, we had one staff person basically, and a lot of volunteers. So it really made a difference. They also in this research found that if 63% of the respondents who had an annual fund hit a donor retention rate of 60%. Now, when you consider that the national retention rate right now is only 45%, to hit a 60% retention rate is huge. So lots of reasons to do an annual fund campaign is because of that 77% you're going to make goal, and you're more likely to have a higher donor retention rate. And there's some reasons for it that we'll get into. So why are you going to do this? Besides those reasons, which I think are probably good enough, but what are some of the other things that happen with an annual fund? Well, first, you are going to acquire new donors. It's part of the process to gain new donors. Now, who doesn't want to get new donors? Okay. Then it's going to help renew and maximize giving from your current donors. So it's a process that I know that when I was that little volunteer doing it, that we always asked for more than they gave the year before. Okay, that was just what you did. And they either said yes or they said no, but you always asked. And that helped raise the increased dollars that we needed. It also helps to inform and involve and bring together your constituents, because you're making a concerted effort to raise money. It's very deliberate. It has very specific goals, and it has very specific strategies. But there's even more reasons. There's lots of reasons why you're going to do this. It creates and improves community awareness. You are going to write a case for support. Okay. And in doing that and making that available, that both your current donors and the community become aware of what you're doing to raise money. Why are you doing it? And it's that why that's so critical. And that's what the case for support does here. It's going to promote volunteerism, because it's going to involve committees and solicitors and phonathons and events, even stuffing envelopes. Okay, so you're going to have lots of volunteers involved. And again, you have to look at your organization. Some of you go, well, we don't have lots of volunteers. Well, you have a board, and board members have friends, and they have colleagues. They have family members that can be involved. And so maybe you only have 5 board members, but that could grow to 20 volunteers. And that's going to be important, is having people that are going to be able to talk about what you're doing and to do some of the work. It also strengthens relationships with donors for the future. So this is a really important piece of your donor stewardship and your donor retention, because you're constantly talking to donors. You are sharing information with them. And whether they're current donors or prospective donors, that's going to be very important. Again, more reasons. Like I said, there are more reasons to do this annual fund than you've ever thought about. It also has a component where you're going to be identifying potential large donors. Okay, now again, I know there's a wide swath of individuals on this call. And so potential large donor for some organizations might be $500, $1,000 donors. For some of you, it might be $10,000 or $25,000 donors. So your definition of large donor will change depending upon who you are, but have your own definition and know that you are going to be identifying some potential larger donors for your organization. It promotes giving. Again, because you are actively doing something and you're doing it on an annual basis. So think of this as something that you create and you're going to strengthen because you already have one, or you're going to create your very first, but it's going to be year after year after year. And that's what builds that campaign. I'm going to use my volunteer experience again. When I started being involved in the annual fund that I was involved in, that we were only raising maybe $500,000. By the time I exited from that leadership role that I eventually had, we were raising $1 million. So that it's something, because you're doing it on a regular basis, people get used to giving, they get used to increasing their gift, and the amount of monies you raise will continually go up. So it's an annually raising unrestricted and some restricted funds, and they become the major source of support for your current operations. So that's really critical. Now, I included the restricted funds because sometimes people like to include that, but primarily keep in mind that your annual fund is about unrestricted charitable contributions. Okay, so who's involved? I think I've kind of alluded to this already, but the planning and implementation is going to be staff, it's going to be your board of directors, and it's going to be other volunteers. Primarily, staff is going to work with some key leadership in that planning process and making sure it gets off the ground and moving forward. The giving is going to be all of the above, the staff. So staff, you should be giving to the annual fund. Board of directors, if any of you are board members, you should be giving to the annual fund. All volunteers should be giving. Okay. And when I say giving, by the way, that could be any size gift. I've read recently, and a couple of people have taken the point of view that, well, I'm giving my time. If everybody gave their time, you would not have the money to operate your programs. So we do have to have people who are giving financially. So we're going to ask everyone to give. My philosophy has always been, ask everyone. If they say no, they say no, but ask them. Okay. So all of the above, constituents who are in your current database and others in the community. And we'll talk more about some of those folks. Okay. So the focus of any annual fund is with individual donors. They are your most reliable source of annual fund gifts. And keep in mind, the Giving USA, okay, just came out last May, June, said that over 80% of all charitable dollars are coming from individuals. Now, you go, well, no, that number was only like 73%. Well, it's really more than that, because you have to add up the individual donors. You have to add up bequests. Even if they died, they still gave to you as individuals. And you have to add up the charitable foundations that are owned and managed strictly by individuals. So they're not including the community foundations, not including it doesn't include donations from donor advised funds, those types of things. So by the time you add up all of that, you're going to be at that 80 plus number. Okay. Basically, it's going to eliminate individuals, community foundations, and corporations, community foundations, and that's pretty much it. What gets eliminated. Okay. So, and what it is, excuse me, seeking is discretionary funds. So we're not necessarily going to try to get gifts of stock, although we could, but we're looking for funds that they don't have to plan for, that they can just write a check or go on and put it on your donate form, and do it by credit card. So discretionary funding. Okay. And by the way, I'm not saying you're not going to have a corporate or a foundation component, but this is really your focus. And as I'm speaking, you're going to see I'm primarily going to be talking about individual giving. Now, timing. It's annual. That's why it's called an annual fund. And this is a warning, kind of a dire warning. If you suspend it, even for 1 year, and say, well, this year we're not going to do the annual fund. People did this during COVID. Okay, they suspended their annual fund. Never, ever, ever stop your annual fund. That's the definition of annual. It's every year. If you stop it for 1 year, it can take 2 or more years to recover and get it back to prior years. Okay, so don't stop. This is an annual fund. Okay, now you have some options about how you manage it. And I've worked with both. It can be an intense, short time frame. We're going to run our annual fund for 4 weeks or 2 months or 6 months, or we're going to run it for 12 months. So our entire fiscal year will encompass our annual fund. It's an option. And you have to decide as an organization what makes the most sense for you. Okay, I've seen both. They all work. You decide. Okay, now, what are the components of the annual fund? Well, there are 4 key components to start with. You have to have a well-defined goal. And this is operating funds that I'm primarily talking about. So maybe this year you need to raise $250,000, or maybe you're a much larger organization and you need to raise $2 million. Whatever your number is, it has to be well defined, and the activities you're going to be doing will get to that goal. That you will know that at the very beginning, if we do this, this, and this, we're going to hit that number. Okay. And in fact, actually, the goal is always to go over that number to assure that you have success. Extensive planning. I can't say this enough. This is not a situation where you say, we're going to do a spring event, we're going to do a Mother's Day appeal, in the fall, we're going to do our golf tournament, we're going to do Giving Tuesday, and we're going to do a year-end appeal. That was a list of 5 activities. That was not extensive planning. Okay, so this really gets much, much deeper into what you're going to be doing. It has organized, engaged leadership. So there are actually people who are going to be involved in this and are going to do these components as you are planning your annual fund. Okay, so that having that leadership team, having a committee is going to be really important. Okay, and then you need a prospect pool. Who are you going to be asking? Okay, and those people that you're going to be asking are going to be divided up and targeted based up on doing face-to-face, direct mail, etc. Okay, and we'll get deeper into that. But keep in mind, these are your 4 primary components of your annual fund. Now, there are some a few more. Let me get into those. You are going to be doing some solicitation assignments, which means we're going to have volunteers. Part of the annual fund is going to be a face-to-face component, and we'll talk, like I said, a little bit more. You're going to have a timetable. So if you're doing this in 4 weeks, what is your timetable to get from the beginning to the end? If you're doing it in 2 months or 6 months, figure out that timetable, what components are going to happen when, and what the goal is for each component as you're moving along. So you're always able to measure it. Okay. You're going to have those strategic benchmarks along that timetable and a budget. It's amazing how many organizations go into this and don't have a budget? Well, you're going to be doing some mailings. You're going to be doing some VIP events. You're going to be doing, taking some donors for coffee. You need a budget. It might be tiny. It might be larger, especially for those of you who are just getting started. You're going, I don't know where to begin. Well, figure out the main components you want to do and what you think those are going to cost, and make sure that you budget it for that. Now, once you get your feet wet with this and doing it that first year, you'll have a better idea the second year. But if you haven't gotten started, these are some things that you need to think about. Okay. Solicitation methods. Well, there's lots of methods. And in fact, Henry Rousseau talked about the ladder of effectiveness in terms of fundraising. We know for a fact that face-to-face solicitation is the most effective way of raising money. It just is. If I can sit down and talk to a donor and ask them whether it's $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, I'm going to be more effective. Okay. It's just the reality. Okay. And it doesn't make any difference in your annual fund whether your face-to-face solicitation is one person. There's one person we need to do face-to-face, or if it's 5, or if it's 100. So whatever your target is, it is the most effective method within an annual fund. Next, we have VIP events and parlor meetings. These are for mid-level gifts. And again, you have to define what that means for your organization. I love VIP events, okay? Because what you're doing is you're having either a board member or a volunteer or even a donor invite a small group of people to their home. Or it may be something that you do at your organization in your conference room. And you're doing either bagels and coffee, or you're doing coffee and dessert, you're doing wine and cheese, whatever that is. But at those events, they hear your story. They're 1-hour events, no more, and maybe an hour and a half, because you can have a little socialization at the beginning. Then you're going to talk about what you do. What is your case for support? What makes you special as an organization? How are you impacting the community? You might have your executive director talk. You might have the hostess of the event speak. You might have a client talk about how you changed their life. Okay. And at the end, you're going to ask people to donate. So this is more of a group solicitation. People don't mind it. You're going to give them their card to fill out. If they don't fill it out there, you will have to follow up with them. But it's kind of a group event, and they're very, very successful. The next thing you can do is, I said direct mail, but that is also going to include phone-a-thons, your email blasts that you might send out. If you are doing an email blast and you're sending this out, and you're going to have a link where they're going to click and go to your website and make a donation, that make those email blasts or the direct mail, whichever you're using, that they're personal. Don't say, dear friend. I mean, please say, dear Diana, and tell your story in a few paragraphs. And we'll talk, like I said, I've got a great example of that I received. But face-to-face parlor meetings, where again, this is kind of a scaled down face-to-face, personal letters, telephone calls, direct mail. And notice I don't have events on here, but I will later. They're going to show up. Okay, but these are the methods that you're going to use in an annual fund that are going to have the most direct consequences. Okay, so then you are going to have special events. You're going to use your in-house list. Again, a phone-a-thon using a current list. direct mail acquisition. This is the most expensive method of fundraising, is to buy a list. They used to get about 3% response rate, and that's not a lot. They can be very expensive. Sometimes they're as low as 1% response rate. So only do this if you don't have other methods, because they are so expensive. Social media, this can include your email, but I think you can be very successful with email if you have some good links, you have a good story, and you personalize them. Don't just send them out blanket and hope people will respond. We've all seen that, and we know it's not really good fundraising. This was something else that Mr. Russo developed, and called it the arithmetic of fundraising. And it really amounted to having a number of quality prospects to ask for a qualified gift that would allow us to equal the goal. So you have to have enough people times enough gifts that you're going to equal that goal. And you need to determine, do you in fact have that as you are starting out? Okay, I'm going to stop right here, because this is successful if you have done the donor stewardship and are creating a situation of strong donor retention that's going to allow you to get to the finish line. And what do I mean by that? You have to have a plan to thank your donors. And what we've seen over the last few years is what I call a failure of heartfelt gratitude. Did you send a thank you last year that made the donor feel good? Now, we know a lot of people are not doing that. I have been and I'm going to call myself the victim of a lack of gratitude. Okay. In some cases, sending gifts that I never even received a thank you. Okay. We know this is true because donor retention for 2021 was only 45%. So somebody wasn't thanking their donors because donors weren't retained. Now, we don't know last year's numbers yet. We won't know those until about May of this year. We're hearing kind of mixed messages, but we don't hear an improvement. Okay. We also know that the retention rate for first-time donors was only between 20 and 25%. So that means that last year, if you had 100 brand new donors, you're only going to keep 20 to 25 of that 100. That's not good. Okay, so it has to do with the saying thank you. And I know during the pandemic that a lot of organizations did not or struggled to get out thank yous. And, I'm from the school of thought that it's never too late to say thank you. So if you didn't thank donors over the last 2-3 years, this is a good day to do it. This is a good day to say, hey, we really appreciated what you did. Because of you over the last 2 or 3 years, we've kept the doors open. We've been able to make a difference. I learned something interesting from a webinar that I sat in on that was done by a company called Next After. They do a lot of research and training for nonprofit organizations. And one of the things that they found is that it's never too late to say thank you, that you can always reach back to those donors and say thank you. So don't feel like it's too late, but take a look at what you did in 2022 to say thank you. I received a couple of very unique thank yous for the end of this last year. And trust me, one of us, they're both were donors that I've given, or organizations I've given to in the past. And one was a handwritten postcard, which I did have here someplace, by the CEO of the nonprofit. And it was very touching. And he said, we know you've been a longtime donor, and we just want to say thank you for continuing to give to our organization. The other one, an organization that I've never given to before. And what they did is what Next After is telling us to do. And that is in 3 paragraphs, 3 short paragraphs. She told the story. This was a lady executive director. She told the story of one person they had helped. And that's what Next After's research showed, is that if you tell me that you helped 1,000 people, well, that's great. I'm glad you did that. But most of us can't relate to 1,000 people. But she told me the story of one person in 3 paragraphs. And I said, wow, I understand that. So kind of think about how you're thanking your donors and the impact that you're getting across. So you need to have, and this is the time-honored answer, this is what's always true, have a written donor recognition plan. And by that, I mean a written plan to thank your donors. Okay, what do you do when you get a check in the mail? What do you do when someone goes onto your website and makes a donation? What do you do when they attend an event? Okay, have a plan and work that plan like it is the most important thing you do, because that's how you steward your donors. And that's how they're going to keep giving year after year after year. I cannot tell you how many nonprofits I gave to over the last 3 years that I will never, notice that, I will never give to again, because they either didn't thank me, or the only thank you I received was that auto-generated thing that comes off their website. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. Okay. So make saying thank you a priority for donor stewardship and donor retention. It's absolutely critical. And keep in mind, if you didn't do quite a good enough job last year, it's not too late to say, we really want to thank you for your gifts last year. We appreciate it. Don't ask them for money. Don't ask them for anything. Okay. Just say thank you. It's amazing how many people will send you money just because you said thank you for last year's gift without asking for a new gift. It happens every time. So that's going to be important. Okay. So make sure you've done that. If you haven't done the stewardship, if you haven't done the thank yous, your donor retention is going to fall off, and it's going to be really hard. So your annual fund is driven. It is the energy that keeps it going year after year, is that donor recognition. Okay. Now, one of the things I recommend, especially for larger gifts, mid-level gifts, even small gifts that have a possibility of moving up, is that you have some type of a prospect rating form that, or some people call it scoring, that allows you to garner information about those donors and their relationship to your organization. Now, this can be, I'm a paper person, I'll own it. Okay, but it can be something that's generated on a computer, but that's a form that's filled out about some of your donors, okay, completed by a volunteer who knows that prospect and can actually talk about their capacity for giving. So the capacity number is really important, because if you're going to be going out and doing these face-to-face solicitations, and you're going to be inviting people to VIP events to solicit them, you need to have some idea of capacity. What are you going to ask them for? Okay, so now my range is more for a capital campaign or a very large campaign, annual fund. Okay, but you need to say, where are people along this road of giving? And your numbers may be totally different than mine. Your high number may be 5,000. Your high number may be 25,000, or it could be 1 million. Okay, again, you know your donors, you know what their capacity is, but this is important to know. What am I going to ask them for? Okay, also, what is their inclination? How likely are they to give to you? So high capacity, high inclination means I've got a good shot at that gift. High capacity, low inclination means I need to explain to them why giving to us as an organization is important. Low capacity, but high inclination means I'm probably going to get a gift. It's not going to be very large, but it gets people on the road to giving. And this is important for both capital gifts, because some of you are probably thinking, well, I would do that for a capital campaign, but not for annual. If you're trying to build an annual fund year after year, this becomes important. Then whatever other information you want to glean for your organization, this is a good opportunity to do it. And then you're going to move that information into your database, just like you would if you were to do a wealth screening. But this is just, hey, what do we know about this person? Let's start there and know what their charitable intent is. You know, have they ever given to anybody before? And what is their relationship to your organization? In this case, they've attended the gala ball and the golf tournament. No charitable giving yet. Oh, we've never asked. So this will be our chance to do that. So once you have created your own form of what's going to make sense, okay, then you're going to score it. So I used a scoring of saying, okay, I have 6 categories here. They're in the 5th category, so they get 5 out of 6 points. Their inclination, they're the highest, so it's 3 out of 3 points. Down here, she has charitable intent, or I should say they do, so 1 out of 1 point. Down here, they've attended events, but they've never given us an actual charitable gift. Okay, so only 1 out of 2 points. So their total was 10 out of 12 points. On any scale, I would say, hey, I have a really good opportunity of sitting down with this person and asking them for a gift. Now, because we were doing a large annual fund, we rated them at $75,000. So whoever those solicitors are, in this case, Carol, who filled out the form, and another person on the board, that's the gift they're going to ask for. This is how you build an annual fund. And again, keep in mind, the amount of the gifts is based upon whatever your organization would deem appropriate for you. Okay, but keep in mind too, over the years, that number is going to grow. Okay, so given this information, I'm going to create a gift table. Now, I brought this gift table down to a $100,000 goal. Okay. And most people are going to think, well, you only do that for capital campaign. No, you don't. You do it for an annual fund as well. That way, you know whether you're going to make goal. Okay. It's based upon that arithmetic of fundraising that Henry Rosso talked about. Okay, so I can take my numbers based upon those forms, and you may only do those forms, like I said, for larger donors, mid-level donors, and you're going to look at some of your lower donors and say, hey, we can move this person up. We can move this person up. If you don't ask them, okay, how are you going to know? So you're going to create a gift table of how many prospects you have. And by the way, I used a 3-to-1 all the way through here. Most gift tables are going to do a 5-to-1. So normally I would have 5 prospects to get 1 donor. Okay. So here to get 2 donors, I would have 10 prospects. Down here in the mid-level area, it often becomes 4-to-1. And then when you get down to the bottom, it's 3-to-1. I didn't adjust my table, but I want you to know that. Okay. So in order for me to get one $25,000 gift, I need 3 people I can talk to. Now, what's the worst thing that happens? All 3 of them give me 25,000, or 2 out of the 3 do. Okay. If none of them do, but one of them might say, well, I'll do 20. Okay. That's still a good gift, but it means I have to start altering my table to account for the fact that I didn't get a $25,000 gift. But if I receive 2 15s, I still am above the number that I needed to raise. So notice how you have to have some flexibility and adjust this gift table, because you're going to start your solicitations at the top and you're going to work your way down. And these lower numbers down here may have all been people that we invited to a VIP event, and we're asking them for 1,500. So kind of look at that, but you need to have some way of measuring your success. Okay, and this will do it. I also like this. This is taking your data and you're going to create this gift history table. Go back 5 years, especially with the pandemic. A lot of folks only want to go 3. You can, but I think 5 is more effective. So you're going to see how many donors gave you $10,000 or more in the last 12 months. Okay. And some of you are going to want to do this on your calendar year, because that makes sense to do it on a calendar year. But these numbers over here on the side are based upon your organization, what makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to find the number of donors for each of these categories. Okay. Going all the way across, all the way down. That's where you're going to use your CRM to do this. Okay. When you're done with the numbers, go back, especially in these top 3 categories, and put in the names of the individuals that go with each one of those categories. So do you have Susie and Sam who gave you a gift here and here, but not here? So they started off on these 2 levels. Do you have a donor who gave to you here and here, but did not give to you here? Why? Why did that person not give to you last year? And those are questions you have to answer as you are doing your annual fund. You're going to go all the way down and do that here. Maybe you're going to go this deep. And at this point, you may just be inviting them to a VIP event. You may be sending them a direct mail letter or a personalized email letter with a follow-up phone call. And by the way, that was another thing that Next After found, is using multi-channel. So if I'm going to send them an email and follow up with a phone call, or I'm going to send them a letter and follow up with an email. So think about those different channels and strategies as you are doing the donors down and the bottom, toward the bottom of your list. Okay. And again, depending on how many donors you have, this can vary. All right. You are also going to be adding new people to this and having that whole cadre of new donors that you also want to talk to. I love this. It works. It's a little bit of work to get it started, but it's going to increase your annual fund because you're really going to see what's happening. Okay. I know you're not going to believe this, but believe it or not, there is an absolute direct correlation between asking and giving. If you don't ask, they're not going to give. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. So your desired outcome is to reach your financial goal because you want to strengthen the resolve of your current donors, your new donors, your staff, and your leadership. You want people to support your organization again this year, next year, and into the future. What the annual fund does is it creates a giving habit. You want people to go, oh, it's the next year. Got to make my gift to this organization. It's the next year. I've got to make my gift to this organization. It becomes what they do. They expect to give. They want to give. And you're going to run an annual fund that's going to encourage them to give. So it's a coordinated fundraising plan it's going to be a part of that plan. It's going to encompass various fundraising methods. It's very disciplined and everything interacts and relates to it. Okay, because you want to ensure maximum giving to meet the organization's needs. Now, I am the author of 2 different books, but I want to get to the last slide because you're going to receive this slide. And because I think it's important to know some of the resources that I use to pull this information. As I said, I highly recommend Achieving Excellence in Fundraising. It's a great, great book. But these are some of the other books, research that I utilized. And I hope this helps you and encourages you to, if you're not doing an annual fund, to do one this year, begin that planning process. If you have any questions, please use these resources. You can also contact me. But I thank you for the time. And Wendy, I think it's back to you.
Diana, that was amazing. Thank you so much for, lending your knowledge to our audience today. I am blown away by this last hour that we had with you. So thank you so, so much. We do have a few questions in the chat. I'm going to encourage all participants today to ask some questions if you have them, but we'll start with the 2 we have now, if that works with you, Diana. The first one, I believe you have mentioned, and I believe might have a passionate response from you, but I'm going to ask it. So the question is, I see a lot of organizations moving to email/automated thank yous. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, if you did that to me and didn't follow up with a thank you letter, you would never hear from me again. Okay, what that automated thank you is really a receipt. It is not a thank you. A thank you looks like this wonderful letter that I received. This wonderful letter. And this one I love because they also included a little slip of paper with a QR code because they want me to go on use the QR code and do their donor survey. They made it very personable.
That's amazing. I love that idea of the QR
I know,
code.
this was so cool.
That's a good one. I've never seen that before.
And this is
all
a
right.
Handwritten note from the president of a college that I made a donation to. Handwritten.
You can't beat that.
I know. Those are real thank yous.
Yeah, they are. I have another one for you. So we are in a capital campaign and we were told by our campaign advisor that we only needed to send thank yous to those who donated $100 or more. Do you think it should be to everyone?
Absolutely. There are so many stories out there of small donors who turned out when they died, left hundreds of thousands of dollars to people. So you don't know what your $25 donor is capable of. You really don't know.
Absolutely. We have a question from Alicia here. So Alicia is saying, it's hard getting some of my donors to make the transition from in-kind to monetary giving. Do you have any thoughts on this?
You know, I am guilty of that. Hello. There is an organization in Phoenix that I have given in-kind donations to for years. Okay. And this year I thought, I really should make a charitable gift. I really should do that. And I did. I received a lovely thank you letters. I have all these lovely thank you letters, by the way. And I felt really good about it. Don't give up on your in-kind donors. I think it might help. A lot of organizations don't send in-kind donors thank yous. This organization never sent me a thank you. But most of the time I didn't leave them my name or information. Okay. But if you know if you have their information, whether it's an email, send them a letter and tell them how much you appreciate their in-kind gifts, and that you hope at some point they would make a monetary gift. And just be honest about it. We thank you for what you've done. We hope that someday you'll do this too. What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Right.
Yeah.
They say no, but that might not even happen. It might turn out to be some great, long-term donor for your organization. So just ask, right?
It may never have crossed their mind.
Yeah.
You might want to nudge them over that finish line.
Yeah. Just need a little help. All right. What else do we have here for some questions? I saw a good one here that I want to get to. Okay. So what role should your marketing and communications department play in growing the annual fund?
I think oh gosh, I think I'm trying to put on that hat for a minute. I think by keeping your website up to date with letting people know that you are doing an annual fund, you could even have the marketing department could even create a thermometer that keeps track of it. The old community chest thermometer that always works. It's often, fundraising is not supposed to be a secret. So let the community know what you're doing. And that you welcome their support and their help. But I think doing something on the website, helping to design the direct mail so that it gets open. I get so much direct mail, I think we all do, that somebody goes, oh, I want to open that. Yeah. So I think the marketing and communications people can help with your brand awareness. That's probably the main thing.
I would jump in and just second that, Diana. I've heard so many times over the years that it's really hard to over communicate that fact, right? If you're fundraising, to your point, it shouldn't be a secret. Your community should know. Folks who have bought into previous engagements with you and shown support for your organization should know. So yeah, I agree. Marketing and communications play a pretty pivotal role in getting that word out and continuing on an annual basis. Portraying your mission, explaining what the benefits are to the community and showing those results, like you've mentioned in your presentation previously. It's an important part. So I agree with you, a very pivotal role for marketing communications department.
I was not every organization has this, but if you're an organization that has a site that people can come to, invite them to come and see what you do. I was with an organization that we helped fund 5 sites, and we actually took donors on a bus tour. We had coffee and bagels. Everybody got on the bus. On the way to the first site, we talked about the history, what the site did. They got to tour, we got back on the bus and they went to the next site. I mean, every organization has to find their own uniqueness to get that word out into the community. But that was incredibly powerful.
Awesome. I have a question here from Addie. So she says, doing paper thank you mailers, while important, are getting costly to our organization. What are your thoughts on personalized emails instead?
I think you've got a generational issue. Addie, sorry, you've got a generational issue. I happen to be, where did I had some notes that I made about this. 77% of your donors right now are my age or older. Okay. No, I'm sorry, 26%. Then if you get up to the boomers, which were born in 1964 and earlier, so from 1946 to 1964, that's 77%. We still expect to get a piece of mail. Now, if you're talking about your Generation X, or you're talking about the millennials, they're okay with personalized email thank yous. But your older donors expect to get something in the mail. And since they have most of the money, hello, the older people we still have all the money. You want to send us mail. And I know it's expensive. I understand. But if you spend $500 on postage to donors who've just given you 500,000 in total, hello, you got to look at the cost effectiveness.
Yeah, if I can chime in here, Diana,
Yes.
we've got a great study on this. We did a great research piece on the preferences based on the generations, right? How do these folks prefer to be approached with appeals or to be thanked? And I think it spells it out really well. I believe we're actually about to redo it and do a completely new study on it, but enhance it. So Addie, if you'd like to share your information, if you're still on, happy to send that out to you directly. It's on our website. You can probably go find it, but it's our generational giving report that really breaks it down by those preferences based on research we've done over the years with our audience, or really our clients, donors, and their audiences.
Right.
That might be very helpful for you.
Yeah, that is a very great resource. Good point. I have a question here from Stephanie. I know we're a little past 3, so if it's okay with you, Diana, are you okay continuing on? Awesome. All right.
I'm hungry, but that's okay.
Stephanie's asking, we are planning for our upcoming health and wellness symposium. And do you think during our symposium, we should have donation cards or signs for the attendees to donate?
Okay, so I read it again, please.
Yes. So we are planning for our upcoming health and wellness symposium. Do you think during our symposium, we should have donation cards or signs for the attendees to donate? I think Stephanie might be referring to like a QR code or just like some type of, ask.
I think that you can have different opportunities. You might have a little table. You could have the QR code where they could do that, because for the younger people. You could also have a raffle giveaway. If you fill out the card, you fill out this card, you drop it in the thing. So I would provide some, again, depending upon your audience, a couple of different opportunities. Number one, to make sure you're getting their information, but also allowing them an opportunity to support it. Yeah,
I just saw a funny comment from Michelle. She said, I'm Gen X and I get way too many emails. It's more likely that I'll open a letter. So that definitely goes to your point.
Yeah, and that's what some of the new research has shown, is that younger people get so much email that if you send them a letter, they open it up because they're so excited they got a piece of mail.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely fall into that. pattern sometimes. Julian, I see your question about QGIve. I think maybe that's something that we could have Brendan reach out to you regarding your needs with the Lions Club. So we'll take your information down and we'll get in touch with you. And then I believe that might be all of your questions. I'm just rereading Amanda's here. One who gave in kind and then gave a monetary donation as well. So that's very exciting. All right. Those are all our questions. We've hit some wonderful points today. I really hope all our attendees are taking a lot of, Callie, yes, we will share the generational study. We'll send that out tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone on this call for attending, for taking some time out of your day. Diana, thank you so much for sharing, opening your brain up to us today and sharing all of your wonderful fundraising experience. It was really wonderful to watch. Brendan, do you have anything to add before we end the call today?
Just another huge thank you, Diana. I always enjoy sitting and watching you do your thing and really share all of these years of experience that you have with us. It's such a great honor. And then for anyone whose questions we didn't get to, I saw a few in the chat that we kind of didn't have time for. So if you want to send those directly to us, we're happy to hop on a call or answer those for you via email. But again, thank you, Diana. It's a pleasure to partner with you and has been for many years. So we appreciate you sharing all of this with us. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Wendy, for hosting us today.
Yes. Right.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much. You too. All right, Diana, there should be a red end button for you if you can see it.
I stopped sharing.
Do you see an end button?
Yes.
Okay, hit it, and then I'll send you an email right after this.